People have lost their lives because of that. It should not happen, but it happens. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon once again, and you're welcome to Time with Your Dentist on Nemba TV. We are still continuing with our series on common dental conditions. In our previous episodes, we have spoken about the two common dental conditions, that is dental decay, or like we call it caca in our local language. We also did talk about disease affecting the structures that support the teeth, and so that is periodontal conditions or periodontal disease. So these are the two things that we've spoken about so far in detail. Today what we are going to do also is look at the adverse or complications of these conditions, that is, if left unattended to or if neglected, what could be the possible outcomes? What could happen to my tooth if I neglect a decay? What could happen to my tooth if I neglect a disease that affects the structure? And briefly, these are the complications or adverse effects that we are going to talk about in a short while. It's actually a short session for today. Hopefully next week we'll do another broad topic. So I'm looking at complications of dental decay or cavity or caries. What I mean is that when I have caca in my tooth and I don't do anything about it, what could happen? Is it going to affect me in any way? Am I even going to die or anything? I mean, what will happen if I leave my caca unattended to? That is what we are looking at. At previous episodes, the tooth is a living tissue, and so this tooth here has a hole in it, the dark area, that is the caca or caries, decay that we are talking about. Now when I have this condition, when I have this problem and I do not do anything about it, what is then going to happen is that it's a progressive disease. It's going to, of course, we talked about it, affect the living part, and that is where we have pain and all that. The possible complication, or what is going to happen if I do not do anything about it, is that this disease is going to travel, affect this whole portion, okay, and then form a swelling or like a boil underneath your tooth. Okay, so some people with tooth decay, when you look into their mouth, you see this small boil on the gum. Now we call it an abscess. It's fluid collected in a pouch under your tooth, right? So that is an abscess. So the common complication that we come across most of the time is this boil underneath your tooth, and that is what we call dental alveolar abscess. Dental alveolar abscess, or in very plain language, a boil underneath your tooth. Now this boils as a result of the progression of the infection in the tooth, okay, and at this stage it's very painful, and this is most of the time, this is where most clients will rush to the clinic, but that is not what we want. That is why we spoke extensively about the preventive measures. Now what will happen if I'm able to take care, or I'm able to manage this abscess? Now when this happens in your lower teeth, so we have the lower teeth here, when this happens in the lower teeth and in the upper teeth, they tend to spread. And so when the abscess happens, when the dental alveolar abscess that I've spoken about happens, and for some reason you go to the pharmacy or the drugstore and get some pain reliever and it gets better, remember that the abscess is still there. Okay, and some even go to the extent of visiting a herbalist to put some things on it and all that. Once that abscess has been formed, it will find its way, whether out or spread. So when it's in the lower tooth, you will find it finding spaces. Now there are a lot of spaces around the neck area. So this abscess will find its way around these spaces and spread. And as it spreads, it may go as long as into the space of the chest. And it will amaze you that some people have lost their lives because of that. It should not happen, but it happens. So that is one of the common complications that we want to talk about. Now, when the spread is taking place, it can go as far as getting to our throat. So you find it sometimes difficult breathing because this abscess has occupied the whole of the floor of the mouth. So it will push the tongue up in such a way to obstruct the airway. And so when it gets there, you find it very difficult to breathe. That is one of the common complications of a simple toothache. And like I said, people have lost their lives because of that. Because when it gets to that stage, it's an emergency and it needs to be treated aggressively. So for instance, if you are at home and you're distant to a nearby hospital is quite far, you may lose your life because you will not be able to breathe. And so that is one of the simple or one of the complex complications of a simple toothache we want everybody to avoid. And the good thing about the dental condition that we spoke about is that they are very preventable. All we need to know is be aware of the risk factors, and we've spoken extensively about the risk factors. Once we know about these risk factors, we'll just take care of them and we'll not get there. And so that is one complication of dental caries that I want everybody to know about so that we don't even get there. Now, for periodontal condition, what could go wrong? What are some of the possible complications as well? So if you are following, we talked about the fact that periodontal condition is where the structures supporting the teeth are affected. So one of the things is that if the structures that are supposed to support the teeth are diseased extensively, then eventually you will lose your teeth. And so at a certain stage in our lives, we find our teeth becoming mobile or loose. That is to say that the structures that are supposed to support the teeth have given up. They are diseased and they have given up. And so eventually you will lose your teeth. Now, all these structures can also have these abscesses. Okay, and abscesses are not pleasant. These boils I spoke about in our mouth and in our gums, they are not pleasant. So they'll be giving you an overwhelming bad smell whenever you speak. So you realize that you have a lot of people or your friends, your immediate colleagues, moving away anytime you talk. We do not want anyone to get to that situation, and that is why on Nimba TV we've taken our time to go through these disease conditions which are very preventable. It is just about knowing the risk factors and taking care of the risk factors, and that is it. So today, these are the complications that I want all of us to take note of, most especially the abscesses that comes with dental decay. For the periodontal conditions, I did mention quite a number of them. That is why I just spoke about the fact that you're going to lose your teeth eventually if you do not pay attention to the disease that will affect the periodontium or the surrounding structures of the teeth. So In a nutshell, these are the complications that I wanted to talk about. We've spoken about them in the previous episodes, but I want to highlight on especially the abscesses that comes with dental decay. These abscesses have led quite a number of people to their grave, and that's not what we want. And so a lot of us needs to know what could be the possible outcome of a simple toothache, so that we all do not take it for granted when we have it. I do not want you to have toothache in the first place, and that is why we have spoken extensively about the preventive measures. We want us all to have a good smile, enjoy our meals till the Lord calls us. Once again, thank you very much for your time, and kindly do all to subscribe, hit this button, and also the notification button, and support Imba TV. Thank you, and we will meet once again. God bless us. I'm always of the view that you do not have to lose your teeth because you are aging. Hello everyone, once again this is Time with Your Dentist on Imba TV Ghana, and I am your dentist, Dr. Harry Boateng. Today we are going to continue with a series on common dental conditions. So over the past few weeks we've talked about one of the most common dental conditions, that is being tooth decay or dental caries, or caca, like our local parlance we will say. Today we are going to look at the second most common dental condition or disease in our mouth, and that is where our focus will be on today. We are talking about disease that affects the gum. Now, when you open your mouth, obviously there are two obvious things that you see: the teeth and then the gum. The teeth is what we did talk about the last time, and so we talked about tooth decay, what causes the risk factors. We talked about the prevention and some treatment modalities. So today we are going to look at the second most obvious structure in our mouth, and that is the gum. Of course, when you open your mouth, you see this either pink or dark brown tissue or covering that surrounds the teeth. It's supposed to protect the teeth and serve as shock absorbers and all that. That is what we are going to talk about. So if you remember, in our first episode we did talk about the brief anatomy of the mouth, and we talked about the fact that the tooth is supported by certain structures, and we did talk about the fact that the gum is one of them, the bone where the teeth sits, and certain fibers or wires that connects the bone to the teeth, and then a lining around the teeth called cementum. So these are the supporting structures of the teeth that we'll be talking about today. Now, these structures can also be diseased or can have infections, and so today we are talking about gum diseases that we call gingivitis or periodontitis. That seems like a big name, but it simply means that inflammation affecting the gum or inflammation of the supporting structures of the teeth. Now, when I talk about the supporting structures, we are looking at the periodontal fibers, we are looking at the bone itself, and then we are looking at the cementum, that is the lining of the roots of the teeth. So today our focus is going to be on gingivitis, that is inflammation of the gum and inflammation of the supporting structures of the teeth. And like I said, this is the second most common dental condition worldwide. Now, Gingivitis simply means inflammation of the gum. And so, when under normal circumstances, your gum is supposed to be pink, or we will say coral pink. Uh, of course, some people have dark pigmented gums. That is normal. And so, that is a normal color of our gums. But if you are having gingivitis, or the gum is diseased, or the gum is infected, there's an infection going on in the gum, these are some of the things that will we want you to know about, so that when you're experiencing them, it will bring your attention to the fact that there's something um, not going right with your gum. The first thing you see is that when you brush, you see blood, or you bleed on brushing. And so, even you convince yourself that you are using the softest of brushes, yet when you put this brush in your mouth, you see blood coming out. The blood is a sign that the gum is inflamed, or there is some um, infectious processes going on in the gum. And so that is the first sign that you see as a patient. The second thing is that you see that the gum will be, if you have a, normally if you had a pink gum, your gum will be a bit reddened. That is, and this is not painful. Most of the time, this is not will not come with pain, and because of that, most of us will not attend to it because there's no pain, and that is an attitude we all have. But that shouldn't be the case. The moment you see any color change in your gum, that you normally you have a pink gum or dark gum, but all of a sudden the gum has become reddened than usual, it should bring your attention to the fact that there's something going on. The second thing is that the gum will become a bit bigger or swollen than normal. And so you have in between the teeth, you have these swollen pieces of gum in between the teeth. That is not normal. And so if you look into your mouth and you see some of these things, it should bring your attention to the fact that there's something going on that is not right. And it's to tell you or inform you that it's time for you to see the dentist. So I've talked about two things. I've talked about the fact that there will be bleeding when you brush. So some people will come, when I spit, I see blood. When I brush, after brushing, I see blood in my mouth or in my brush or in the sink that I use. The second thing is that you see part of the gum being swollen, especially in between the teeth. You will have these gums swollen in between the teeth, and that should inform you that there's something going on. Of course, when you're having blood in your mouth, when you're bleeding on brushing, and you have all these, it will not give you pleasant smell. So the third thing is that you obviously will have a breath, bad breath, and that is a contributory factor to most of us having bad breath. So basically, that is what you see with gingivitis. It will not purely present with pain. It will not purely present with pain, but these are some of the signs that when we look out for, we can easily pick out the fact that there's something ongoing in our gums. Right, so I have gingivitis. I do not do anything about it. What happens? Now, let me say that gingivitis untreated, if you do not do anything about it, will progress to what we are going to talk about, to affect the other structures supporting the teeth. And so you have your gum, the body will try to fight the infection. The infections, or that we talked about, the fact that you have dirt in your mouth, bacteria in your mouth and all that, the body will try to fight it. So there will be series of inflammation. The inflammation is what we see as the gum getting bigger, getting swollen, and the color changing, and becoming more reddened. So those are all signs of inflammation. The body is trying to fight the infection that is in your mouth. But of course, once the irritating factors or what is causing the infection is still there, the body will try as much as hard as possible to try to get rid of the infection, but then it will not succeed because the irritating factors are still there. What do you need to do until those factors, irritating factors, are removed? Then your gingivitis will persist. Now, if the gingivitis persists, it progresses to affect the other structures of or the other supporting structures of the teeth. And so here we are talking about the periodontal fibers that we did talk about the last time, the bone itself, and then the cementum. And that is where we have periodontitis. Now, we'll talk about periodontitis at another session, but here let's focus on gingivitis, that is disease of the gum that we started with. Now, someone will say, what causes this? Primarily, or fundamentally, or basically, the cause of inflammation affecting the gum is when you have what we call plaque. Now, plaque or calculus. Now, if I can say, if you've never visited a dentist before, or because of COVID, most of us were scared of the dental office. So maybe for a year or so, you've not seen a dentist. When you open your mouth and you look, especially your lower front teeth, underneath your lower front teeth, you see that these whitish, chalky whitish material that is attached to the base of your teeth. Sometimes they look yellowish, brownish, and sometimes dark in color under your teeth. I'm sure we will show pictures of that. And so this adherent mass and called plaque or calculus, it is made up of bacterial species. It is made up of what we call polysaccharide matrix. That is quite a big word, but it's just a matrix, and then it's also made up of the food debris, so, and then calcium. All these come together and form that mass under the base of our teeth. And because it is not part of our body, the body sees it as a foreign material, and that is how come the body tries to fight it, because it is not part of us. And that mass is full of bacteria, and this bacteria releases their toxins and starts the whole inflammatory process. And so once you have this in your mouth, then definitely you will have what we call the gingivitis, or infection or disease of the gum. So what do we do? I always say that no matter how well you brush your teeth, no matter how well you keep your mouth, as far as we are eating, you have this build up in your mouth. So it's no fault of ours that you have it, because once we are eating, there's no way you can 100% completely get rid of all the food debris. No. So as you eat, you have a little amount of the food debris in your mouth. It's like keeping water in bottle for a long time. If you get rid of the water, you see this little amount of sand left there, and that's how it is. So over time, this comes together with the bacteria already in our mouth. The food debris comes together with the bacteria already in our mouth because of saliva. Saliva contains a lot of calcium, and we have a lot of calcium in our mouth. So this comes together and forms this adherent mass called plaque, and that forms at the base of our teeth. And so when you find that it is the primary cause of gingivitis, of course we have other causes, but I'm saying that it's the primary cause of gingivitis and periodontitis, which we'll talk about at another time. So We have a lot of causes aside what I've spoken about. So we have gingivitis caused by other systemic factors. For example, pregnancy, people on oral contraceptives, other medications, antihypertensives, antidepressants, all those medications can cause some form of gingivitis. So we have drug-induced gingivitis. We have um, gingivitis induced by systemic factors. We have other non-plaque induced gingivitis. So you're talking about viral, fungal, all those causes are there. But I'm saying that primarily, gingivitis is caused by plaque, and that is what we can deal with. That is what we can deal with. Unfortunately, this plaque that I've talked about cannot be removed by brushing. So you cannot use your brush to remove that. I've had funny incidents where some clients come to me and they try to remove it, and one actually, when the husband went as far as taking a kitchen knife to try to get rid of it, and ended up lacerating or cutting the lip of the wife. That is how far some people want to go to remove those things. But it's so simple. So we are talking about prevention. How do I prevent this? Like I said, once you are eating, the food will build up. Food will remain in your mouth. Once food remains in your mouth, calcium is there, bacteria is there. They'll form an alliance, or they'll come together and build it up. What do I do? It's simple solution. Visit your dentist, let them have it removed, and that is what we call cleaning or scaling up and polishing. It's as simple as that. So we advise that if at worst, visit your dentist once a year. Ideally, it should be once every 6 months, so that when you have these things built up in your mouth, we can easily remove them. And I can say on authority that if you have these things removed, then your incidence of having, or your risk of having dental decay will be very, very reduced, so that you do not have to worry about having your tooth decayed and having gum issues. And of course, we talked about the prevention. The same thing: you eat well, you try and reduce, or if you can stop in between meals snacking. We eat healthily, more vegetables and fruits that we talked about the last time. You try and exercise if you can, and all these simple things actually help reduce this build-up or plaque that we are talking about. But fundamentally, or what is very important, is that let's develop the habit of visiting your dentist. You do not have to be sick. You do not have to be down before, or be in severe pain before you visit your dentist. But diseases of the mouth are progressive. It starts as non-painful process, and then it goes on. If you do not do anything about it, it gets worse and becomes painful. The point at which it gets painful means that it is well advanced, and that is not where we want to get to. We want to catch it as early as possible, so that whatever we have to do, we'll do to help our patients. We want all of us to smile beautifully, so that we do not have to lose our teeth at any point in time. I'm always of the view that you do not have to lose your teeth because you are aging. No, aging does not necessarily mean that you have to lose your teeth. And I always say that if you lose your teeth at a certain age in your life, it simply means that you did not take good care of it, and that is how come you are losing. So aging is not synonymous with losing teeth, not at all. It should rather be the other way around. So if you take good care of your teeth, I can guarantee that the number of years that God has given you, you go with your teeth. And that's what we all want. We want to smile from beginning to end. We want to have a pleasant smile for everybody, and that is why we are here to educate to us on how best we can keep our oral hygiene for the good of all. Having a healthier world means brushing twice daily, and that is what I want to leave you with. Let's brush twice a day, so that we can keep our mouth healthy. Let me also add this: having a healthier world also means that getting or eating less sugar. And all these, we talked about it the last time. As much as possible, we want these sessions to be interactive. Um, we want to educate our viewers. So if you have any question, I said anything that you need clarification on, anything you did not understand, whatever that bothers you concerning your oral health, kindly leave your questions at the comment section and we will address it. We want this to be interactive as much as possible. So on that note, kindly subscribe Imba TV Ghana for more educative sessions like this. Thank you, and till we meet again next week, take good care of yourself. So that the teeth also benefits immensely from exercise. Now, what I want to see, or what do I feel? Hello everyone, good morning. Once again, this is Time with Your Dentist on Imba TV Ghana. We are going to continue from our previous episode where we did talk about the basic anatomy of the mouth and the tooth, and one of the common dental conditions, that is dental caries or dental decay, or caca like we know it. We talked about what causes or what brings about this decay of our tooth. Today we are going to continue from that and talk about what we can see or what we can feel to understand or to know that there's something happening to our teeth. There's a disease process going on with our teeth, and that is going to be our focus for today. We are still going to talk about the treatment and most importantly prevention, and that is our goal. So like we said from the other time, the tooth is basically made up of 3 layers. This is the dentine, that's what I've removed. That's the first layer, the 9 shell, and then the second layer is the this is the enamel, that's the 9 shell. The second layer is the dentine, and the red portion here is the pulp or the living part of the tooth. So how do I know that I have a problem with my teeth or with my tooth? What are the signs? What would tell me that there's something happening, so I need to visit my dentist? Now let's look at this here. So this is a decay process in the tooth. So when the decay process starts, normally it starts from the enamel, that's the outermost layer of the teeth. We talked about it the last time. Now when the decay is in the enamel, you will not feel any pain because the enamel protects the teeth against such sensitivity, pain or anything. So when the decay is in the enamel, you will not feel any pain. All you feel probably, or all you see, is some food packing in there because you have a hole or cavity in there, so you have bits and pieces of food getting in there, and so you realize that you may have to use something to pick out food debris after eating, some food particles after eating. That may be the only sign. You may see that the color of, or a portion of the tooth, the color has changed to probably chalky white to dark color. So when the decay is in the enamel, that is what probably you may see, or that is all that you see. And the food packing may give you bad breath, or food entering into the cavity or the decay or the hole in there may give you bad breath. So when the decay process is in the enamel, that is all that you feel. Now the dentine is made up of very tiny tubules or very tiny holes that links or that connects to the nerve. And so when the decay process gets into the dentine, that is where you feel some sensitivity or some twitches, and so you realize that you will not be able to take anything cold, you will not be able to take things that are hot, and so people will shun chocolates and ice creams when they are having this sort of sensitivity in the tooth. And so when the decay process is in the dentine, all you feel is some sensitivity plus what I've talked about when it's in the enamel, food packing, bad breath, and the likes. From the dentine, from the enamel to the dentine, it will not give you serious pain, but the sensitivity may be severe. You may have bad sensitivity or twitches. So like I said, you may not be able to take certain kinds of food, cold and hot stuff, and some fruits like oranges and pineapples, acid containing foods, because it irritates the pulp, it irritates the dentine, and then gives signals to the pulp, and then the brain interprets it as pain. So in that, when the decay is in the dentine, that is what you feel. Now this is a progressive disease. When you don't do anything about it, when you don't do anything or you don't consult a dentist to sort it out for you, it's a progressive disease. So it goes on, travels through the dentine until it catches the red portion here that we call the living part of the tooth, or the pulp. Now when the decay process catches the living part of the tooth, that is the pulp, that is where you have pain, and that is where most of us will run to the dentist. But that is not what we want, because if the decay process gets to the pulp, treatment is expensive and it's time wasting. And so we don't want the decay process to get to the pulp. But if it gets to the pulp, that is where you have frank pain. And so when it gets there, you will not be able to chew because of the pain. The pain sometimes disturbs you in the night, disturbs your sleep, and all that. But this is where most people will run to the dentist. But some people also will try other methods, putting things in there to try and stop the pain. Now let me say this, that when you put things in the cavity, there's a common drug that is on the market that people use. I don't want to mention names. They get in there and then, so I'm fine, the pain is fine. What happens is that it kills the nerves. So yes, the pain may be gotten rid of, but what we should understand is that the infection is still in the tooth. So if you do not do anything about it, the infection will flare up, and then you have that problem once again. Now if you don't treat it when the decay gets into the pulp, it travels all the way down here, and then unfortunately my model did not show, but it forms like a boil under the tooth. And so most people will have a decay and they will have swollen face. That is a process that happens. Now when you have that, then it means that the decay process has been with you for a long time, and also the infection has progressed quite severely. And so most people will often come to the clinic when they have a swelling or when they have severe pain. That is not what we want. We want, first of all, to prevent the decay from happening in the first place. But if it happens, when you notice that it's in the enamel or it's in the dentine, when you have any funny feeling around your teeth, any funny twitches, sensitivity, don't try and see your dentist as soon as possible, because at that time treatment is less expensive and it's easier. And so we have to be mindful of that. So those are the signs or the symptoms that as a patient you feel. When the decay is in the enamel, you probably may not feel any pain. All you have is a color change, some food packing. When it's in the dentine, you have some sensitivity here and there and some twitches here and there. When it gets to the pulp, that is where the pain proper starts. And unfortunately, when it gets here, treatment, like I said, becomes a bit more expensive and a bit more complicated. So briefly, that is about the signs and symptoms of tooth decay. What I want to see, or what do I feel to know that I have a tooth decay, I have a tooth problem, is what I've spoken about briefly. So the next session I want to talk about, and that is very important to me as well, as we are looking at the treatment. Yes, what are the treatment modalities here? Now, like I said, when the decay is in the enamel, it's very easy to treat it. Okay, we just have to put in some filling material. So you visit your dentist will clean the decayed area, make it clean, get rid of all the infection in there, and then we'll put in a filling material. We have a lot of different type of filling materials that we can use. At this stage, treatment is less complicated and it's less expensive. Now when it gets into the dentine, it's the same thing. We can easily clean all the infected area and then put a filling material in there. When it gets to the pulp, yes, that is where the pain will start, but it doesn't mean that all hope is lost. We have another treatment modality we call the root canal therapy, that we can go in the tooth, get rid of all the infected portion, and fill the teeth nicely for you. But like I said, at this stage, it's a bit expensive, it's a bit time consuming for you as a patient and for the dentist as well. And so that is it. Treatment are available for this kind of condition, or when you have a tooth decay. Gone are the days when anytime you have pain in your tooth, you have to go and take it out. Those days are long gone. If the tooth is decayed and you are having pain and the tooth is not so badly broken down, it can be salvaged. We can do something about it for you, and that is what we call the root canal therapy. In due time, we will explain all these things into detail, and so that we'll have a better understanding of all the various treatment modalities that we have. Right, so let's look at the most important aspect of this whole thing, and that is prevention. If you do not take anything at all from this video, kindly do well to take note of this, because that is important to us. Because as dental practitioners, we want to prevent the disease from coming in the first place, so that we all have beautiful smiles, enjoy our meals, not burden ourselves with any decay here and there. So we are talking about the primary prevention, what we can do to prevent this in the first place. And I'll talk about about 5 or 6 things. But the first on my list is this: visit your dentist at least twice every year. And I'll explain to you why this is my first on my list. At least twice every year. That means every 6 months, just walk into any dental clinic and have your teeth checked. Why? Because when the decay starts in the enamel, if you don't have a trained eye, most of the time you may miss it. But then if you visit your dentist have that trained eye to catch it up. And let me say this: by the time your tooth decays from your enamel to catch the pulp, it should have taken roughly about 4 years. Which means that if you were visiting your dentist and the dentist caught it up, he would have sorted it out for you in time before it gets to the pulp. And a lot of the dental conditions, if you do not have a trained eye, it will be difficult for you to pick it up. And so it becomes necessary and prudent that you visit your dentist at least twice every year. If at worst, maybe once every year you can do it. So I always say that, listen, on your birthday, just give yourself a treat, give your teeth a treat. Have your teeth checked. There are lots of dental clinics across the country now. Just have your teeth checked and don't get yourself in trouble with tooth decay and its issues. And so that's the first thing: visit your dentist twice every year, at least once a year, if the twice may seem quite a lot for you. That is the first. The second thing is what we eat. Now, from our previous episode, we talked about the fact that we have bacteria, and the bacteria feeds on the fruit, and they have some high love for foods that are rich in sugars and all that. And so I would say that let's limit our sugar intake. And so a better world now involves taking less sugar, and it's across. I mean, when you take less sugar, you are preventing a lot of things: diabetes, obesity, and all that. And in addition to that, you are also protecting your teeth, because if you are not feeding these organisms with a lot of sugar, they will not have time to produce a lot of acid that destroys the teeth. So let's limit our sugar intake. That is taking less sugar, snacking in between meals. Try and let's do it moderately. If you cannot stop at all, let's do those things in moderation. Now, another thing is that if you want to snack, we advise vegetables, fruits. That is better, and especially for our children, we pack their bags with all sort of sugar-containing substances, sugar-containing drinks and biscuits. Let's start with them on fruits and healthy meals that will help the kids. So that is the second thing. Let's take less sugar, increase our vegetable intake as much as possible. If you can, stop in between meals, snacks, but if you cannot, let it be a healthy one. The third thing is that let's develop the habit of flossing. Now, the flossing is what we use to clean in between our teeth. Okay, so in addition to brushing, let us also try and floss in between our teeth. Now, I'm going to show you what the floss looks like, so that we can hear. So this is a dental floss, very common everywhere now, and this now they've made it very easy so it's easy for you to clean in between your teeth after brushing. Most of the time you can do that, so that the food debris that hides in between the teeth can easily be taken off. Now, the fourth thing I want to talk about is brush twice every day. Twice every day. I always make a joke that if you want to brush once a day, I don't have a problem, but try and do it in the evening. When you wake up in the morning and you don't want to brush, well, that is up to you. But the reason for us advocating for brushing twice a day, especially in the night, is you're going to sleep 6-7 hours. These organisms that we talked about have all the time in the world to do their thing, produce a lot of as much of acid as much as possible, and so you want to prevent that. So if you brush, the fluoride mitigates or buffer serves as a buffer for the acid that is produced during the night, and that will help reduce the decay process, or not even start the decay process at all. And so brushing twice a day is what we advocate, and especially for our children, let us encourage them to do that, so that they'll pick up that habit of brushing twice a day. And finally, I want to talk about exercise. Yes, we know that exercise, of course, helps every aspect of the body, and it may amaze you to also know that the teeth also benefit immensely from exercise. Now, what happens when you exercise? You increase blood flow to the area, to our mouth, and that once you have that increased amount of blood flow to the area, it helps decrease some of these disease conditions that we talked about. So in a nutshell, this are basic things that we can do to prevent dental diseases, dental decay. You see, the first time I talked about the fact that it is a common condition in the world now. The good news is that it is so preventable. It is all about knowing your risk factors and taking care of the risk factors, and it will be good to go. So this is where time will bring us to today. I thank you so much for once again making time to be part of this session. I'm Dr. Harry Boateng's once again time with your dentist on Imba TV. See you next week, God willing, and do well to subscribe on Imba TV. We'll be talking a lot more about the second common oral condition that we encounter, and so do well to stay tuned and let's have a good discussion. Thank you. Hello everyone, this is Dr. Boateng Harry here once again, and it is time with the dentist on Emba TV. Today we are going to look at the basic anatomy of the mouth. This is important because I want us all to understand the different disease conditions of the mouth, the various diseases that affects the different structures and tissues in the mouth. So it is important that we go through the basic anatomy of the mouth. Let us take note of this fact that globally about 3.5 billion people are affected by oral diseases. Yes, globally that is how much of oral conditions that affect people, or how much of this disease is affecting a lot of people worldwide. And it is also interesting to know that tooth decay has become, or it is the common disease globally now. So with these facts in mind, please remember these two facts. Let's look at the basic anatomy of the mouth. These structures in the mouth, these structures can be diseased at any point in time. And so if we get to understand the basic structure or the basic anatomy, then we will understand the kind of diseases that also occurs in the mouth. So we are going to look at, of course, if you open your mouth, the first thing that comes, or the first thing that you see, is your teeth. Or the next other thing that you see is your gum. You see your tongue. You see the roof of your mouth that is what we call the palate. You also see under your tongue and at the back of your throat as well, if you open that wide. So we are going to basically look at all these structures and how they can be diseased. So let's look at this. This is the tooth, and like I said, once you open your mouth, it's the first thing that gets your attention because it's white in color. So the tooth basically has 3 layers. So if we can look at this, we have the enamel. The enamel is what we all see when we smile. It's mostly whitish or a big chalky white in color. That is a protective layer of the tooth. And we have the second layer, and that is also yellowish in color. It is also interesting to note that is the second layer that actually gives the color of our teeth and not the enamel, the first layer. So the second layer usually is yellowish in color, and it is made up of very tiny tubules. We call them dentinal tubules. And the third layer is where you have the blood vessels and the nerves going through. Now, most of us think that the teeth is a piece of stone. No, the tooth is a living tissue like any other part of our body. And so we have the blood vessels and the nerves going through this layer, and that is a portion we call the pulp. The pulp, or the living part of the tooth. Now, so basically that is the anatomy of the tooth that we see in our mouth. I've talked about the enamel, that is the whitish layer that we see. I've spoken about the dentine, that is the second layer, and then the third layer is where the blood vessels and the nerves also go through, and that is the pulp. And so that is basically the tooth. The second obvious thing when we open our mouth we see is the gum. Okay, is the gum. And from this we see the gum is pink in color. Of course, the gum or the gingiva, like we say, the real color of the gum or the gingiva is usually pinkish in color. Those who are good in colors will say coral pink, and so that is the color of the gum there. And so this is the basic anatomy of the tooth. In the mouth, we have the tongue. I believe, I don't have the tongue here, but I believe you all know. We have the roof of the mouth, that is called the palate. Now, the roof of the mouth is made of two parts. We have the hard part and then the soft part. So we have the hard palate and then the soft palate. And of course, the tongue is there. The salivary glands, or we have saliva being produced in the mouth, and that is by the fact that we have a lot of salivary glands in the mouth. There are actually three major salivary glands. We have the parotid, the submandibular, the sublingual, and other minor salivary glands that we'll talk about in due time. So basically, this is the anatomy that I want us to keep in mind, so that it will help us understand the disease process that occurs in our mouth. As time goes on, we will get the other structures, and we will look at the anatomy of those structures as well. But today, because of the condition I want us to talk about, so we are going to concentrate on the tooth itself, And so I started by saying, or giving a fact, that tooth decay has become the common disease affecting people of the world now, and about 3.5 billion people globally are affected all the time. And so it has become important that we talk about this, especially in this time of this pandemic that we all find ourselves. The last time we talked about the fact that just taking care of your mouth, taking your oral hygiene seriously, can actually go a long way to prevent this deadly COVID-19 disease. And so we are talking about tooth decay. Or dental caries. And why is this topic important? It is important because it is the common disease affecting people worldwide now. And so it is just important that we talk about it. So I said from the beginning that the tooth is made up of three layers: the enamel, dentine, and the pulp. Now, when we talk about tooth decay, it simply means that it's a local infection of the tooth that results in frank cavity or holes in the tooth. And so when you want to talk about tooth decay, it simply means there's a hole in the tooth, and that hole is as a result of a leakage or the portion of that tooth dissolved in acid, and that will cause a cavity or a frank hole in the tooth. So simply, that is tooth decay. What we know in our local parlance is caca, that we are all conversant with. And so it simply means that there's a hole in the tooth, and that hole is as a result of an infection, and that infection is as a result of bacteria, or I can say germs, in the mouth. And so that is what we will talk about briefly, and then we'll bring today's session to an end. And so we are talking about a hole in the tooth. Now, this enamel is made up of very hard, we call enamel prisms. They are very tiny crystals, and that is what makes the tooth very hard. And we know, or I want to say that the tooth is the hardest thing in the body, and because of this enamel. And so enamel is very hard, but in as much as it is that hard, it can still get dissolved and cause or bring about holes in the tooth. And so we are talking about this enamel dissolving to affect this dentine, going on to affect the pulp. And so tooth decay or dental caries is actually a progressive disease that mostly starts from the enamel, it progresses into the dentine, and then it gets into the pulp. We will look at the symptoms and signs later on. But let's talk about what causes this. what causes this. Now I'm going to talk about four main things, four main factors, and let's please remember them. First of all, you should have a tooth in your mouth. That's the first factor. The second factor is what we call the substrate, or the food we eat. The third factor is that we have organisms or bacteria or germs in quotes in our mouth. The fourth one I'll talk about is time, and then there's another factor that is the saliva bit. Now you have at age 6 months, normally we should have teeth in our mouth. Let me add that there are times that at birth you can have teeth in your mouth. It's normal. We call them the natal teeth. And so if you have a baby with teeth in the mouth at birth, it is not you don't have to attribute it to any superstition. It is very normal. But normally at 6 months we expect the first tooth in the mouth. And so the moment you have teeth or tooth in your mouth, it means that that tooth is at risk of decay. And so that's the first factor. The second factor is substrate, or the food or what we eat. Now of course we are always eating, and all the food we eat gets into the body, but not all not all leaves the mouth. Most of the time we have quite an amount remaining in the mouth. So that's the second factor. The third one is bacteria. Now on a very good day we have close to about 400 to 700 species of different kind of bacteria in our mouths. Now these organisms are beneficial to us because they help us in diverse ways, but the only thing is that after they have fed on our food in our mouth, they give out acid, and it is the acid that actually destroys our teeth. And so what it means is that if you have a lot of these bacteria in our mouth, then you have a lot of acid production, and that will actually go a long way to destroy your teeth. But like I said, these organisms, it doesn't mean that we should get rid of all of them. No, because they help us, we also help them. One of the key things I want to talk about is the fact that they protect their territory. So in COVID times like this, if you have a balanced normal flora in your mouth, it means that they are protecting their territory so much that they will not allow any external organism to get in. So in that sense, it's protective. So some of them also help us converting certain chemicals like nitrates into nitrites. That helps with the cardiovascular system as well. So they are helpful to us, and we also help them by giving them something to eat. The only thing is that these organisms have a high, I would say, some kind of high love for foods that are rich in sugars. And so if you feed them with so much sugar, then they have a field day. They produce a lot of acid, and then the acid destroys our teeth. And so if we are talking about the cause, why did time come in? Time came in because if you give these organisms a lot of time, then they will have that much time to produce a lot of acid to destroy your teeth. And so for instance, you're going to sleep about 6-7 hours. You're going to close your mouth the whole night. Now because of that, these organisms, once you are asleep, they are not. They have all day round job to do. So whilst we are asleep, they are also working. So in the night, they have a lot of time to feed on the remnants of what we have eaten and produce acid. That is why we advise that if you are going to sleep, do well to brush your teeth, because the toothpaste try to neutralize the acid that they produce, and that is protective of our teeth. Now if you do not brush before you go and sleep, then you can rest assured that these organisms will have a field day to do a lot of damage to our teeth. So we've spoken about the cause. We've spoken about the fact that you should have teeth in your mouth. You should have there's bacteria, that those things that we can't do anything about. The fact that there's, if you give these organisms enough time, so time comes in and then the organisms itself. So what do we have control over? Looking at the factors, teeth, of course, we all need teeth to chew, to speak, to function. So teeth is important, and so we do not have control over the fact that we should have teeth in our mouth. Once God has made them, they will come. The bacteria, like I said, they are with us, they help us, we also help them. So there is nothing we can do about them. Now, what are the two factors that we have control over? Is what we eat and the time. And so I said that these organisms, they have a high love or affinity for sugar foods. And so what do you do? We'll come to the preventive thing, and then when the preventive aspect, sorry, and when we do, you understand all these very well. And so we've spoken about what tooth decay is. We've spoken about the global burden of tooth decay. We've spoken about the cause of tooth decay for today. And so we'll end the session here today, and the next time on Emba TV with Time with your dentist, we are going to talk about the prevention of tooth decay, and that is very key. I have actually dedicated a whole session for that, because that is what is really important to us. And then we'll look at some treatment modalities that are also available. Thank you very much, and once again, this is Dr. Boateng, Time with your dentist on Emba TV. Do well to subscribe. Thank you.